From West Virginia Public Broadcasting.
Support for the Legislature Today has been provided by the following.
The West Virginia High Technology Consortium Foundation, diversifying West Virginia's economy through technological innovation and development at the Fairmont I-79 Technology Park, now with locations in downtown Wheeling, Moundsville, and Glenville.
Connecting West Virginia families and businesses through high-speed internet services. Learn more about connecting at frontier.com.
At the Legislature today, after yesterday's Republican dust-up over the magistrate's salary bill on first reading, it moves smoothly through second reading today. Road fund financing will be the topic of a special session later this year. We'll explain why in this half hour. And we'll talk with the President of the State Senate and Speaker of the House of Delegates coming up on the Legislature today. Good evening, I'm Beth Voorhees. Over the years, legislators have fiddled with the school calendar in an effort to reach the goal of 180 days of student instruction. Most counties fall short. A few sessions ago, lawmakers allowed counties to alter their calendars to start the school year earlier in August and extend later in June. This session, with Governor Tomlin's encouragement, the legislature is revisiting the issue. Dave Mistich reports.
With Governor Tomlin expected to deliver a wide-ranging education reform bill, one facet will likely include allowing communities to choose a school calendar that works best for them. The House Education Committee met today to discuss that issue.
The committee heard a presentation from the West Virginia Department of Education's Joe Panetta, Assistant Superintendent in the Division of Student Support Services. Panetta spoke briefly before turning it over to questions from members of the committee. They touched on various issues related to a balanced or year-round calendar. One example was logistical in nature, such as ensuring that schools on a balanced calendar would have adequate air conditioning during summer months.
Hopefully the legislature will appropriate some funds for that if we see that counties who do have schools that aren't air conditioned are interested in it. Right now I think the counties that are have taken that into consideration, Campbell County for example. And I think most of their, if not all of their schools are air conditioned. But yeah, that have to be taken into consideration. Hopefully the school building authority would have some funds available to upgrade the schools that don't have air conditioning and move in that direction.
While many delegates seem interested in alternative calendars, Panetta noted that certain facets of current statute make it difficult to allow individual communities the opportunity to make that decision on their own.
Of those 180 days of instruction, 5 had to be scheduled as ISC, Instructional Support and Enhancement Days. And those in statute are specified exactly when they have to be scheduled, what months at least. And those 5 days have to be scheduled during the months of October, December, February, April, and June. So you see that's already a restriction as when those days have to be scheduled.
With West Virginia's student achievement ranking low nationally, it was somewhat surprising that only one question related to student performance. That question came from Delegate Adam Young of Nicholas County.
Do you have any data that shows that a balanced calendar system versus a non-balanced calendar improves test scores?
I don't, but if you just do a balanced calendar per se, I don't know that there's a test or research results available to prove that. But usually when you go to a balanced calendar, school districts that have gone to it in other states, they've also implemented other things like the intersessions and other activities, which then the results are that students do perform better.
While Panetta was unable to provide evidence of balanced calendars improving student achievement, Delegate Josh Stowers of Lincoln County said such a calendar can, in fact, increase student achievement. However, that data is limited to specific age groups and subject areas.
There is quite a bit of data out there that will indicate that on the elementary level, that specifically at-risk kids, lower socioeconomic kids that come from a disadvantaged background, there is data out there that indicates that specifically math scores increase with a balanced calendar. Reading scores to some degree, but specifically math scores.
Stowers was not concerned about the lack of discussion on student achievement, but said it's important that all aspects of balanced calendars be discussed, including their effect on teachers.
Clearly, you're going to have concerns from people who have worked a particular schedule their entire career. I hope that the focus stays on student achievement. We shouldn't take the focus, we shouldn't negate the effects that this will have on teachers and service personnel. However, the focus needs to be primarily on student achievement.
Stowers also made it a point to explain that if reform is passed on school calendars, it would not be an all-inclusive mandate.
I think an important point with this is that this is not going to be a mandate from the state legislature. This is not going to be a mandate from the governor. One of the biggest points to this is it provides local school boards with the local autonomy to determine what's best for their district. Because West Virginia, we have a whole, we have a wide swath of counties and different needs, and one size doesn't fit all. But this bill, again, will not mandate a balanced calendar, but it will give the counties the ability to implement one if they feel it's best for their students.
Delegate Mary Poling, who chairs the House Education Committee, said they are anxiously awaiting the governor's bill on education reform.
We are honoring the governor's education bill as the one that would receive the calendar, the attention to the calendar and the other issues he's brought forth. I feel sure that there are members who will introduce bills that may take up part of what the governor has proposed. Sure. But until we see the governor's bill, I can't address specifics of what we may do separately, either as individuals or as a committee.
Poling said she suspects that the governor's bill is in the drafting stage, and they can expect it to be delivered sometime this week or next. For the Legislature Today, I'm Dave Mistich in the House of Delegates.
Yesterday, House Bill 2434 caused quite the stir on the House floor as Delegate Patrick Lane moved to have the bill rejected on its first reading. Republicans accused the Democrats of fast-tracking the bill through what was supposed to be its second reference to the House Finance Committee. On its second reading today, the bill could have been amended, but the floor was quiet. Delegates John Overington, a Republican from Berkeley County, and Mark Hunt, a Democrat from Kanawha County, had 3 proposed floor amendments, but Overington ultimately decided to withdraw them. House Bill 2434, providing equitable pay scales for county magistrates and staff, will be up for debate and passage tomorrow. 12 bills were introduced on the Senate floor and referred to committees today, one of which will take on the state's unlimited punitive awards in medical malpractice cases. Senate Bill 215 would put a cap at $500,000 on punitive damages claimed in cases of personal injury or wrongful death. One of 2 lead sponsors on the bill, Senator Mitch Carmichael of Jackson County, says it will not limit any compensation that might be awarded to a victim by the court, but restricts the amount used as a means of punishment for those found at fault. Carmichael says many trial lawyers see West Virginia as a lawsuit-friendly state, and this bill will help curb that reputation.
This is one of the primary components to judicial reform here in West Virginia is cap on punitive damages, joint and several liability rules, and offsetting award verdicts. So this is one of the primary mechanisms for re-energizing our business environment here in West Virginia and providing jobs for everyone.
West Virginia is not the first state to put a cap on these damages. Carmichael says at least 20 other states have passed similar legislation. The link from a state's roadway system to its economy is one often called upon to defend new funding for highways. But in West Virginia, legislators must find ways outside of the general budget to pay for road additions and even necessary maintenance. Governor Tomlin created a special commission to find these revenue sources, but a bill in the Senate might hurt the already existing funds. Ashton Mara explains.
Well, good morning. Let's go ahead and begin. 6 senators began their morning taking on the issues of the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. The committee approved Senate Bill 129 today, a bill making the failure to wear a seatbelt a primary offense with a fine of $25. Current state law makes failure to wear a seatbelt a secondary offense, meaning police can't cite a driver for not wearing a seatbelt unless the driver is stopped for other violations. Committee Chair Senator Bob Beach of Monongalia County says it's time for West Virginia to catch up with many other states that have already passed similar legislation.
I think it's a time that has come for the state of West Virginia with the success we've had with our texting bill in the past and our cell phone use bill in the past. I think this is just the next step for safety inside the vehicle for everyone.
While his committee may have fewer members than others in the Senate, Beach says they will take on more than 75 pieces of legislation this session. However, they will not tackle one of the biggest issues concerning infrastructure in the state: funding for state roads. Revenue to build new roads like Corridor H in the north and the Coalfield Express Highway in the south, and even keeping up with general maintenance, comes from taxes on fuel and motor vehicle fees, not from the state's general budget. Keeping up the more than 36,000 miles of highways across the state is a costly job, but one Beach says is important to our state's economy.
Our highway system can be our face of the state of West Virginia for economic development. Anyone entering the state of West Virginia, that's the first thing they see is our highways and where they're taking us and where we can advance economic development. So we need a platform to build economic development, and I think that platform is roads.
Governor Earl Ray Tomblin established the Blue Ribbon Commission on Highways in August to study new funding sources. Beach is a member of that commission and says they are looking at multiple possibilities.
I don't think we can hang our hat on just any one thing. It could be a small fee, it could be a small tax, it could be a change in how the Turnpike Authority works. We could maybe dissolve the Turnpike Authority, turn that over to the Department of Highways, do some cost savings there. So there'll be a wide array of things that we'll address here in the future.
The governor has pushed back the deadline for the commission's final report to May 1st, which Beach says means the governor wants to take on transportation and infrastructure in a special session. With a special commission on highways and talks of a special session focused on transportation, it's clear finding ways to fund our state road system is a priority for Governor Tomblin. But a bill introduced today here on the Senate floor would actually take away a portion of that funding. Senate Bill 217 would remove the road tax as it applies to alternative fuels used to heat homes and power off-road vehicles. Lead sponsor of the bill, Senator Bob Williams of Taylor County, says now residents pay an additional tax when buying kerosene or propane they use to heat their homes. 217 would remove that added tax that funds state roads, reducing it to almost 5%.
Even though we need to find some resources for the road fund, this is just an unfair burden on those folks who are buying fuel, not using it to power their vehicles on the road, and then they're paying a tax on that, the road tax on that. So this bill just removes that portion of the tax.
If passed, Senate Bill 217 would go into effect on January 1st of 2014. For the legislature today, I'm Ashton Mara in the Senate.
In a moment, we'll visit with the Senate President and the Speaker of the House. First, here's a look at some of the bills introduced in the Senate today. Among the bills introduced in the Senate today, Senate Bill 211 to require applicants for licenses under the West Virginia Real Estate License Act to successfully pass criminal history record checks from the West Virginia State Police and the FBI. The bill grants the West Virginia Real Estate Commission with the authority to perform the record checks and requires the applicants to cover the costs of performing them. Senate Bill 212 to require that a quorum of the Board of Canvassers be present to canvass the returns of the election. The bill authorizes the Chief Circuit Court Judge to appoint a person to the Board of Canvassers to make a quorum, and the bill requires that at least one member of the Board of Canvassers be a commissioner of the County Commission for that county. Senate Bill 213 to authorize a county commission to temporarily fill vacancies in the offices of the clerk of the county commission, prosecuting attorney, sheriff, assessor, and county surveyor. The bill permits the temporary successors to serve a maximum of 30 days. Senate Bill 215 to place limits on the amount of punitive damages that may be awarded in a personal injury or wrongful death action. The maximum amount recoverable as punitive damages may not exceed $500,000. Senate Bill 217 to reduce the wholesale tax on heating fuel, off-road fuels, kerosene, and propane used for home heating purposes or off-road use to 4.85% effective January 1st, 2014. And Senate Bill 218 to include on the state personal income tax return a checkoff option to donate some or all of any tax refund to the Jackson's Mill 4-H Camp Checkoff Program for the operation of the camp. Up for passage in the Senate tomorrow, Senate Bill 74, having to do with reasons for juror disqualification, and Senate Bill 116, to make it a crime to place graffiti on real and personal property. The bill establishes misdemeanor and felony criminal penalties and provides for suspension of driver's licenses in certain circumstances and community service. The bill provides that affected property owners may institute a civil action for recovery of damages. The legislature's top two leaders join us tonight. Senator Jeff Kessler was elected November 14, 2011, following a one-year term as West Virginia's first and only acting Senate president. He was first appointed to the Senate in 1997 and was first elected in 1998. He is an attorney from Marshall County. Delegate Rick Thompson first arrived in the legislature in 1980 and returned in 2000. He was first elected Speaker of the House in 2007. Speaker Thompson is an attorney from Wayne County. And gentlemen, thank you very much for being here tonight. You're both licensed to practice in West Virginia, right? Okay, just want to make sure of that. Speaker Thompson, do you have any reaction to the dust-up by Republicans yesterday over the magistrate's pay bill?
You know, I think we're just starting the session, and sometimes emotions run high, but dispensing with a second reference committee is something we normally do. I asked, are there any objections in the House before we do it? No one objected. I didn't think anything else of it until we come there Monday. So hopefully we got that out of our system and we can proceed with the business the people elected us to do.
Do you expect this kind of partisanship through the session?
I certainly hope not. I think the people sent us here just to get the work done for the people of West Virginia. And I think it's partisan when you run for office, but when you're serving the people, you should just be serving the people. That should be your only goal.
Does the minority leader consult you when these things are going to happen? Does he give you a heads up at all?
I didn't on that one, so.
Okay, it surprised everybody on the floor. President Kessler, you get along with your minority party okay?
Yeah, we quite frankly, there's very few partisan votes, at least under my watch since I've been there running the Senate for now the third year. We've basically put West Virginia first and don't worry about the party labels, quite frankly.
But you do have 46 now, 46 Republicans in the House. Will you do anything differently as a result of that shift?
No, we'll still do what we think is best for West Virginia, and whoever has the idea, if it's a good idea, then we proceed with that idea. Nothing will change along those lines.
Have you determined which body will take up which issue? Will the Senate be working on this issue while the House works on this issue? Have you met and worked all that out?
Actually, we did a little bit of that today, and I think we've got an adjustment. The House is going to be taking the budget and running it first, and that's going to be a major issue, and we'll be starting with the education bill and some of the other initiatives, but we divided them up, I think, dead even, 12 and 12.
12.
Really? So who's taking on, say, the education reform package first?
The Senate will start with
that. The Senate will start with that one.
Yes.
Okay, how about prison overcrowding?
Well, that one we're going to be working on as well. But again, as I mentioned, the House is going to be taking the budget up, and it's a tough fiscal year, so they're going to be working on the budget issue, at least initially.
Yeah, there's 24 bills, and 12 apiece is basically how we work it. Now, some of we will continue to work on that legislation independent of that. It's just as far as running the bill itself. And so the staff only has to be in one place at once at a time. So we divide those up basically on what the chairs want. In the Senate, we try to work with each other, and we have an agreement on who will run what.
Any other issue that the House is taking up instead of except the budget?
No, the House is taking up the governor's bill on the driving while in the influence of drug, expanding that jurisdiction. I think the House is taking up the gas line, increasing the penalties.
Yes.
We're doing a lot of the tax updates that we need to do. And I think to balance our budget, there's going to be some movement to recapture some funds that are in special accounts. That'll take specific legislation. Because the House has to run the budget first, they'll have to take on those pieces of legislation early on.
I think it's good for the citizens to know that this happens, that there's this time management issue where that both houses aren't looking at one issue at once. one house is working this issue, the other house is working this issue.
Right, but as the speaker indicated as well, I mean, that doesn't mean just because we're starting with the education bill doesn't mean they're not going to be working it as well. I'm sure that they'll be looking at it, having discussions in their committee, et cetera, because you know, we've been around long enough, both of us, that both sides, I think, are chomping at the bit to get at a lot of different issues, not only the governor's agenda, but some of the bills they've introduced as well.
And I appointed a special task force, and as soon as we receive the governor's bill, I'll meet with that task force and go through that complete bill with my task force.
The education task force?
The education task force. We'll do that. As soon as we get the bill, we'll call the meeting and we'll get together and meet on that.
And you've appointed a special committee on prison overcrowding.
Well, actually, no, on child poverty. We created a select committee on child poverty. I mean, it occurred to me that a lot of the issues we've been talking about over the years with childhood obesity, teen pregnancy, or dropout rate, lack of employment opportunities, juvenile delinquency, which then leads to substance abuse and prison overcrowding. A lot of the common ties throughout a lot of those bad issues and bad negatives we have as a state really start with kids growing up poor, and if they don't have a chance to learn, if they don't have a chance to be healthy, they oftentimes go on the wrong side of the track. So if we can eliminate that in many respects, it may in the long run be better for society, but also save the taxpayer in the long run as well.
I'm looking forward to hearing more about this committee and what it proposes to do about child poverty.
Yeah, and I think it's real important as part of the prison overcrowding, we look at substance abuse treatment. We have to find the $20 to $25 million at least to provide for substance abuse treatment. And that's, again, the House, that's one of the big issues to me is finding that funding within our budget. And I think that also addresses the prison overcrowding in some respects, because we have a lot of recidivism with people that are drug users, and we need to address these treatments, see if we can lower that recidivism rate.
Do you raise the taxes on cigarettes and alcohol?
I don't think we need to do that
Nobody wants to do that.
I think we passed a supplemental last year, $20 million. It's just a priority. You know, in our budget we have certain priorities. I think that needs to be a top priority, to find that money within our budget.
Find the money within the budget for substance abuse treatment.
Well, you know, I tell folks that you know, there's always, we will leave this session with a balanced budget because we're constitutionally mandated to do so, and our role as legislators and the tough decisions we have to make are what priorities we set, and who gets what money and how much they get, and what programs you advance, start, expand, or cut, and that's part of the political process.
You are two separate bodies of the legislative branch, but do you get together often during a session to discuss issues and how they're going along?
We usually talk daily. I mean, it's rare that we do not talk daily. We usually are in communication daily about the legislative process, because we are the legislative branch, the two of us together, co-equal with the governor's office and the courts. So I mean, but we talk often and meet often.
All right, good to know. Senate President Jeff Kessler and House Speaker Rick Thompson, I appreciate you coming on tonight. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
And here's a look at some of the bills introduced in the House today. Among the bills introduced in the House today, House Bill 2526 to allow for the participation of homeschooled students in certain secondary school activities that are governed by the West Virginia Secondary Schools Activities Commission. House Bill 2527 to create a drug testing program for applicants and recipients of temporary assistance for needy families cash benefits. The bill provides for a substance abuse treatment program. House Bill 2528 to prohibit the Division of Motor Vehicles from issuing instruction permits to applicants who have not successfully passed drug tests. House Bill 2532 to prohibit the use of a person's credit history in employment hires, except in limited circumstances where there is a legitimate job-related purpose in requesting the credit history. The bill also prohibits the use of a person's credit history in insurance transactions. House Bill 2535 to create the Intrastate Coal and Use Act and the Intrastate Oil and Natural Gas and Use Act to establish that the environmental regulation of coal, oil, and natural gas produced and used within the state is exclusively regulated by the West Virginia Department of Environmental Protection. House Bill 2544 to improve state emergency preparedness. The bill requires the Commissioner of Highways to erect signs on the interstate highways and other roads relating to directions to emergency shelters. It requires the Office of Emergency Services to coordinate with local radio and television stations to broadcast public service announcements with information as to the location of emergency shelters. The bill provides tax credits for use of natural gas or propane-fueled emergency generators, and the bill provides a protection from civil or criminal liability to persons who donate food during times of emergencies. House Bill 2548 to increase the criminal penalties for assaults and batteries against athletic officials, and House Bill 2550 to add a criminal offense of receiving materials depicting minors in sexually explicit conduct and to enhance the felony criminal penalty. Up for passage in the House tomorrow, House Bill 2434 to provide compensation of equal amounts to all county magistrates, magistrate assistants, magistrate court clerks, and magistrate court deputy clerks. And this has been the Legislature Today. Tomorrow, the Republican response to the State of the State address. Our guests will be the minority leaders in the House and Senate, Senator Mike Hall of Putnam County and Delegate Tim Armstead of Kanawha County. We welcome your comments. You can email us at feedback@wvpubcast.org. I'm Beth Voorhees. Thanks for joining us. Good night.
Support for the Legislature Today has been provided by the following.
The West Virginia High Technology Consortium Foundation, diversifying West Virginia's economy through technological innovation and development at the Fairmont I-79 Technology Park. Now with locations in downtown Wheeling, Moundsville, and Glenville.
Connecting West Virginia families and businesses through high-speed internet services. Learn more about connecting at frontier.com.